October 7th meeting of the Hastings Planning Commission to order. If you'll please rise and join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have received a proposed agenda. Any changes anyone would like to propose? If not, do we have a motion to approve? So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported to approve the agenda as distributed. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay. Likewise, you've received draft minutes from our August 5th meeting. Any corrections?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported to approve as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. All right, and just information items for your reference, a copy of the cancellation notice from the September meeting. Public hearings, we have none, so we'll move on into new business. Dan, first item, site review. You want to introduce that?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So tonight we have a site plan review for 128 South Jefferson Street. This is the former county seat Main Street Barbecue Bunkers restaurant building. The reason it's in front of you tonight is the use will be changing to a general office use, which is a permitted use in the B1 district, but because of the parking requirement differential, actually restaurants require considerably more parking than general office buildings. It is a change of use that will be reviewed by Planning Commission for your review and approval tonight. Again, as I mentioned, general office use is a permitted use, so it's permitted by right and by law in the B1, the Central Business District. So Rebecca Harvey has prepared a staff report that you can refer to in your packet. We also have Zach here tonight to answer any specific questions that you may have from the applicant.
Rebecca?
Sure. Well, so Dan really provided a great overview. I would only focus your attention really on your design standards in your B1 district. Given the fact that they're not making any building additions or site changes, a lot of the standards are either met or don't apply. However, in your B1 district, you do have essentially what equate to facade standards. This is on a corner building or on a corner lot, and so actually these facade standards apply to both of the built walls facing the street. So this really actually is appropriate for it to be in front of you for that reason, in my opinion, in that some of these are a little discretionary. And in the event that the applicant wants to modify or not meet any of your design standards, that rests with the Planning Commission to modify that. Staff cannot do that. You'll note in my review, it's in that table form that the proposed facade changes actually are going to be improving the situation to some extent. They're adding windows, which adds the percent of transparency to the walls which you require. There are a couple of questions just because the information wasn't discernible on the building elevations as to the height of the windows above the sidewalk and whether or not the glass is transparent. I'm sure the applicant can speak to that this evening, which would be lovely if everything is in order. You don't have to modify anything on those couple of things, and you can really find their exterior modifications to be consistent with your standards.
Okay. Great. So, would you like to address those issues?
So the window height.
If you would you use the microphone because we are broadcasting? Introduce yourself and...
Zach Santmeyer, building owner. The window height will be uniform visually, but it'll range between 48 and 52 inches above the sidewalk because the sidewalk does slope. But visually speaking, it'll be on one line. Right now, there are 3 different lines that the windows are on, and it's not very visually appealing. So as someone who likes things nice and tidy, they'll all be on the same line. Yeah, you can see there, and then if you scroll to the other, the front elevation, you'll be able to see all of those are on the exact same line. There is a bit of a slope from left to right, and that's why there's a variation from 48 to 52 inches. Besides that, the windows will be slightly tinted. They'll all be uniformly tinted, not reflective, but tinted because especially on the south side of the building, the sun is coming into the building. They're currently tinted, and it'll match the current tint that's on the windows.
So you would like for us to consider a waiver on the height of the windows above the sidewalk, since the standard is 30 to 40 and you're proposing 48 to 52?
Correct. On the south side of the building, they're already that height. Those are not changing. So there's currently 4 windows, 1, 2, skip the third, and then 4, 5. Those are existing. Those won't be changing. We're simply adding a window in the middle to make it uniform all the way across. And then on the front side of the building, we can go back to the front, and the ones on the back are just, again, uniform elevation with what's existing. On the front side of the building, to the right of the door, there's a window that currently comes lower than that line, and then the right window comes even lower. So it's just kind of stair-stepping. There was no rhyme or reason to the windows that were put in, candidly. And so we'll just be making them all uniform. So yes, there need to be an exception to make them all uniform with what's existing. Yeah.
Okay. Questions from commissioners?
No, I do not have any.
No. Okay.
Mr. Chair, could you confirm the size of the second-story window area?
I can't.
Per window.
They're all the exact same, and they're not changing from what currently exists. But I don't know the size.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have a maximum standard, and so it's really a question of whether or not they need modification. A reasoning for their request might be that they're not changing anything, but the fact that they're putting in new windows is changing it, and it subjects it to your standards. So you don't have any idea if it exceeds 36 square feet?
36 square feet on the second floor?
Per window.
Oh, no.
Of pane glass.
Oh, certainly, not on the second floor, certainly. Because as you can see, on the left side of the building, there's currently not windows, and all on the south side of the building, there's no windows at all on the second story. There's only 3 existing. Candidly, it is in our plan in the future to make that all usable space where we'll put uniform windows all the way around the second story of that building, but not today. So on the second story, it's certainly less than 36 square feet.
It's per window.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
less than 36 square feet per window. They're relatively small windows in the second story. They're residential.
Okay, do we have any concern with the proposed request to go with the slightly higher elevation on the windows?
I would make a recommendation that we make that exception.
Okay. So, and Rebecca, do we need to even mention the second floor?
No, I think your finding would be that the proposed exterior modifications meet your section 9476 with the exception of the height above the sidewalk, and that you are willing to modify that standard and accept the 48 to 52. I'm assuming you're finding tinted glass not to be acceptable.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I
That's what you said, isn't it? Right?
That's exactly what I meant.
Yes, so we have a motion, do we have support?
I'll support.
Discussion.
So the windows are gonna be the same height in the front as what the current windows are on the south side, is what you're saying, right?
As well as the center of the three that currently exists, and that's already the height of the window. Yeah. We're just making it match.
If you look at the way it was when it was county seat, it was a higher
Right.
window to the north, and then must be bunkers.
Bunkers
cut
changed it.
Lower, or Main Street, or Pew, whatever.
Whoever
One
it
of the
was
three.
changed it. And we're bringing it back to its original visual appeal on the curb.
Further discussion?
In my lifetime, I've seen a lot of changes in that building.
Yes.
Yeah.
This will be the last one.
All right. No further discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Great, you're all set.
To clarify, did we say that when the tinted windows, we're fine with that?
Yes,
Just want to make sure. Okay, cool.
as long as they don't turn into reflective, but, yeah,
They won't be
tinted
reflective.
is fine. And
We'll match our
we understand
neighbors
the
in
sun
High
issue.
Point. Yeah, make it look the same.
Good luck, and great looking project.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to item B, preliminary site plan review for Scott Chandler of Woodlawn Meadows Retirement Village, 2 at 1813 Northeast Street. Dan?
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Scott Chandler and his group are here tonight for a preliminary site plan review and preliminary review of a PUD amendment. Woodlawn Meadows was established as a planned unit development 25 years ago, and basically it was proposed in a couple different phases. The first phase has been built out with some like tertiary care, long-term care type of units. The plan for the original PUD was to have some additional multifamily housing, senior housing, on the acreage that's now proposed by Scott and his group for the single-family site condominium. So per our PUD ordinance, Planned Unit Development Ordinance, any amendment to a PUD basically creates a necessity to do exactly what we would do for a brand-new planned unit development review. So the appropriate staff have met with Mr. Chandler and his group with a pre-application conference. The next step is tonight's meeting of a preliminary site plan review. And again, to refresh Planning Commission members' memory, preliminary site plan review is just that. The Planning Commission is not here to render a yay or a nay for the project. They're here to offer suggestions and comments. Mr. Chandler and his group are aware that they will not walk away with any perceived approval or denial from tonight's meeting, just basically reflecting to the Planning Commission members what their preliminary plans are for the site plan as well as the PUD amendment. They have completed the application, paid the appropriate fees. They have put together a PUD narrative, which is in your packet tonight, and they've presented a preliminary site plan for your review. Rebecca has reviewed the information and has provided comment.
Okay, Rebecca?
Yeah, I thought it might be helpful if I just highlighted a couple things, one on substance and a couple on substance and a couple on process. That might be helpful. So, as Dan mentioned, this is in a PUD before you, but it's in a preliminary plan review. And so essentially what you're doing tonight is you're checking to make sure that all of the content is there and that everything meets the ordinance unless otherwise modified. And what you will do tonight with that finding then is to advise the applicant if they need to change anything or if they need to add anything, so that they may then proceed back and get prepare their final plan. So they are obviously returning to you with the final plan, and then that goes to council. So in addition to that, what they're proposing, the land division, the mechanism for dividing the land to create these 32 units is through the Condominium Act. So in addition to the PUD, so the PUD is the master planning mechanism they're using to get this design. The way they're actually proposing to divide the property is through the Condominium Act. And so there is also a process for the review of a site condo. You are doing both at the same time. So what you're going to be doing tonight is the PUD preliminary plan I just talked about. This is a time, too, for you to take a look at the site condo. And then normally what you would do is once you review the site condo plan, you forward it on to the council. Well, you don't want your site condo plan to go to the council before the PUD plan. So I would say what you do tonight is offer comment both on the PUD plan as well as the site condo plan. Then with your PUD final plan, you have to have a public hearing. You do that, and at the conclusion of that, you would be providing council recommendation on both the PUD plan and the site condo plan at the same time, even though the site condo plan doesn't by ordinance require 2 steps. So that was my procedural comment. I don't know if you have any questions on that. It's not difficult. I'm just saying I think you want to be cognizant of that in terms of your motion tonight. From a substantive standpoint, so the proposal in front of you is wildly different than what the original PUD was, which is just fine. They can do that. They built 1 of 3 phases of the originally approved PUD. They're coming back now and saying, you know what, we're not going to do those 2 phases as proposed. We've got a 32-unit single-family site condo instead on the rest of it. It actually is a reduction in density. But more importantly, it results in conformance with your density standards. So not only the 9 acres in and of itself, but the total PUD will now be in compliance with your density requirements. I'm not suggesting that, I'm assuming that the original approval perhaps was granted a modification of the density, since what's authorized by ordinance is 6 units per acre, and obviously the 116 units was in excess of that, so I'm assuming you probably modified that. What they're proposing now will actually be under 6 units per acre, so you're all set on density and you can move forward. However, what I did want to point out, and I know you've read the report, so I'm repeating something that you've already read, but it's in bold. What your ordinance also says is that once it's rezoned to PUD, or once it's approved for PUD, the PUD district, if you will, or the PUD itself does not actually have density standards. They rely on the density standards of the zoning ordinance, and what you are directed to use is the master plan classification and the zoning plan to figure out what district applies. And doing so results in this being subject to the R1 district standards. And in terms of lot size, lot width, that gives an applicant direction on, how big their lots have to be, what the setbacks are going to be. This particular proposal, so with that said, in the R1 district, you have a 9,900 square foot lot size and 75-foot lot width minimum standard. What the applicant has done, although as with some of your PUD provisions, you as a planning commission have the ability to modify that if you find that the overall design and density are consistent with your PUD district, and which I already said the density actually is a reduction and it is consistent with your ordinance. However, so you may very well find the reduced lot sizes, so they are proposing lot sizes and lot widths of less than what the R1 district requires. So in order for you to approve the plan as proposed, it will require an action on your part to accept that modification. That's an important, this is your preliminary plan, so it won't be in its formal form until the final, but because of the way you actually have that in writing in your ordinance, you'll want to make sure that if you find those reduced lot sizes and widths acceptable, that you make specific note of accepting that. You'll notice in bold that I've noted that they range from 7,000 to 18,000 square foot, so some of them are large enough. The widths range from 56 to 66, short of the 75, but some of them being corner lots obviously meet that, and so you have a variation of compliance there. Another thing I would highlight for you is the setbacks. So the setbacks shown on the plan are taking setbacks from the R2 district, just like the lot sizes and lot widths were taken from the R2 district. So the setbacks actually shown on the plan are reflective of R2 district standards. So I don't know that, normally you're not approving setbacks when you are looking at a site condo plan. The setbacks, lot coverages, all of those kinds of things are dealt with when they come to get their building permit on a lot-by-lot basis. I mean, it's like looking at a plat. You're looking at lot layout, does it meet our dimensional requirements and road layout? That's what you're looking at. Same with here. But I'm drawing that distinction because I want to make sure that the applicant knows that unless you say, oh, we think these setbacks are okay, that they're going to be subject to the R1 district setbacks, which are greater than those shown on the plan. So in accepting I think it's relevant to you because if you are inclined to accept the reduced lot sizes, then you should be aware that they are going to have R1 district setbacks applied to them, and you want to make sure that they're large enough to accommodate the required setbacks. You don't want to approve a lot that's too small, and then they have to come back and get relief from the setbacks because you've authorized reduced lot sizes. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I would say, as it relates to the layout of this, the density's on point. You just have to be thinking through the lot size, lot width, and the setback situation, and how you might want to move forward with that. Other than that, I would say now I'm kind of switching back into the process side of things. I know I said, well, you'll do the site condo and the final development plan together, and that's where once you do that, it will go off to council. But I would say that what you can do with the site condo at this time is to make sure the applicant understands that if you have any questions or need any any additional information on the site condo, this is their time to prepare that so that they have it when they come back with the final development plan. And to that I would say you would be, and I've listed that in my report, that direction should really speak to the road. It's a private road. It will be subject to the city's approval and city road construction standards. So the city will be looking at that for design. Same with sewer and water and storm drainage. And also, all of those things should be in a master deed so that the city attorney can look at that to make sure the deed has been prepared appropriately. You don't need that tonight, but you should have that when they come back for their final development approval. So that's the kind of comments your ordinance says, any recommendations you have to the applicant come tonight, that's the kind of thing that they would find helpful to know now so that they can come back with those.
Okay. Thank you. Questions for Rebecca at this point? Gentlemen, anything you'd like to put in front of us in response to what we just heard from Rebecca before we begin our discussions?
Just going to put this plan up. Good evening. My name is Todd Stivey. I'm with Excel Engineering, the engineer who prepared the plan, working for Scott Chandler. He's here in the audience tonight too. So we are certainly here to answer questions and have that dialogue that we've discussed. There's not a lot to add from what Rebecca went over. I would point out that although the underlying master plan that you're looking at for any deviations requested in the PUD is R1, the surrounding land to the, shoot, I got to get my bearing. I think that's north, yes, and east is R2. So in the plan, we did compare the lot sizes with the R2, and we are proposing that the PUD setbacks match the R2 setbacks, not the R1. So that is a distinction, I think, that has to be made. We are requesting reduced lot sizes by width and area. The minimum lot width at 56 feet, those are primarily the lots 16 through 26. The rest of them vary much closer to 62 to 64 feet. Yeah, I think the largest one is 68 feet. And if you take the average of all the lot sizes, they average out to 10,340. So the average lot size in there exceeds the R1 and R2 minimum requirements, with the minimum lot proposed being at 7,000 square feet. Again, those lots 17 through 25 would be the smallest in the bunch. When you look back to the original PUD, that was all accessed through private drives, private roadways. There were the public road stopped, East Street stopped there where it entered into this site. So that was the premise of this design, is that we would continue on with private roads, because a good portion of it, the portion across lots 1 through 8, is primarily in place already. Utilities are there, the roadway is there. So that is the intent, that this is a continuation as a private roadway. And you can also obviously notice the turnarounds at the end. So that I wanted to point out. I don't really have anything to add beyond that at this point until we get into some discussion. So I'll leave it at that. Scott, did you want to add anything?
No, I think you covered it pretty good.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Commission questions? Comments?
Question.
Chelsea?
On so the private street, will that be built like to city street standards basically, or
I think it has to be.
has to be? Okay.
I think we would want some clarification of what that means. Typically, when we see that standard, it means that the blacktop thickness and cross-section of the asphalt is the same as a public road. But I don't know if it applies to the width and the curb requirements. You've got a very wide public road standard at 37 feet back to back. We are proposing a 26-foot wide private roadway through there without, there's some curbs in there, but not all curb.
You're going to go with roll curb so you can put the curb cut any place you want it.
We were proposing an asphalt edge rolled curb through the main portion of the street. There is no curb here now.
Right.
And then around the cul-de-sacs and the intersection, we were proposing a concrete.
That's the only concern I have, just looking at that. Is that going to be, is that road that's running east and west with the cul-de-sacs on it, is that going to be wide enough to get a fire truck in there?
Yeah, we're proposing 26 feet, and then the turnaround is a regulation turnaround, so fire department will need to weigh in on that.
They'll look at it.
26 is wide enough for fire, yes. And the idea that to meet the city standards again, is that the asphalt, the gravel, and the sand subbase, that would all comply with the city standard. So,
Well, that will be an important question to get in front of Travis and the fire chief, and that's outside of our purview, so we'll let the experts resolve that. One of the things that was noted in Rebecca's report that was not addressed was the percentage of open space.
Yeah, under this scenario, well, even if you look back at the original PUD, there was no dedicated open space. This is the original that was approved. You can see the various, I think there's 8 buildings, something like that. So there's no open space proposed here. We think with a lesser density that we're proposing, at this point, we're not proposing any open space. All that would be contained within the lots.
Now, if I could add clarity for the planning
Please,
commission.
yeah.
So as it relates to the open space requirement, it's looking at the PUD as a whole. So my feeling was that if we could ascertain what open space is available in that phase 1 that was built, because clearly this phase is all going to be private property. It has no common open space. So in order to determine whether or not this 1.3 acres has been provided, if we knew how much of the phase 1 was open, then we could say, well, there's X amount of open space in phase 1, and so your conclusion is that it meets that 10%, which would be 1.3, 10% of 13 acres. I couldn't tell by the site plan. I couldn't make those calculations, but I figured you could do it in your head. like instantly.
It's 1.35.
Just what's the purpose of an open space requirement and how it can be used? That's a question for...
Well,
I mean, what are we trying to accomplish? Is it visual or is it utility?
so in abstract, the purpose of an open space requirement within what we might think of as a PUD, the purpose is to get green space, it's to create a gathering place, it's for stormwater management, it's for building separation, it is for all of those things. And that's why you allow it to take certain forms, but you want it to be contiguous so that it's not, like you can't just use the road right-of-way as the open space. So that's abstractly why you have, and then the percent that a community puts on that they want. For a PUD, 10% in a PUD is pretty average. It ranges from 5 to 15%, what communities like in PUDs. The interesting part is that usually you don't see a flat-out, single-family site condo come in through a PUD because they don't need to. They can just go into any zoning and do a site condo residential development.
That
and
was
they don't
my
need,
next question.
Yeah, and so...
Because I'm assuming there would be no open space requirement with a...
No, because they're just going in just like they would a plat, right?
Right.
And they're saying, here's how we're going to access it, and here's our lot layout. So they're using this mechanism because it's there. And so this land is already approved for PUD, and so they're really just saying, well, we'll just go in under this PUD auspices that it's already like laid over that, and then we'll just do it because everything's the same, except for this open space. So that's what I'm saying. Well, so really the only place, that I think that the open space standard actually is going to play a role is actually in phase 1. That kind of layout is where you would say, yeah, you need X amount. You can't just have all parking lots and all.
Well, I was just trying to determine what kind of we can modify that. And so I was trying to determine
Let me
What?
make sure you can.
Okay, please do. Because it seems to me that if it were permitted in a site condo, that it makes sense to me to look at this more under the dictates of a site condo, because I think if you look at the original intent of the PUD and the types of structures that were going to be put in, had that been completed according to the plan, that we're actually better off with the proposed revision that has more of the characteristic of the surrounding neighborhoods than the original PUD did.
So you're thinking that perhaps the appropriate mechanism would simply be to remove it from the PUD?
Well, I can't answer that because I don't want to impose additional burdens on them if there's some reason why using the PUD is convenient for them. But
Yeah.
I'm saying to the extent that we may have flexibility, I personally would err more in favor of looking at the site condo guidelines than the PUD guidelines.
I can't think, and I'm not, I think that we actually had this conversation in the preliminary meeting as to, what would be most advantageous. And I think my recollection was it was really just one of, it wasn't so much that the PUD ordinance provides any particular, well, except maybe the modified lot sizes. That might be it. That's probably it. All right. I'm not seeing where you can modify that, but where your open space requirement is under a provision of your PUD standards that doesn't have this waiver provision attached to it like the lot size section does. Were you able to determine whether or not Phase 1 provides an acre of open space?
We have to look at that and
Yeah.
do the measurements. Yeah, it's hard to say. There are large areas
Yes.
of green space that are all connected through here. Let's see, it was 13.9, so what's that, 4 acres roughly of existing, but part of that's in here, in the road. So it would be very close, but I can't say tonight whether that's fully 1.3 or
So the
not.
first phase is more for assisted living, wasn't it?
It is.
So this next phase, you want to do, is Woodlawn Meadows going to own all these houses? You're going to lease them out to people, or maybe that's not even...
It's a for sale product.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. So you could end up with young families in there.
Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, the current assisted living center is under separate ownership.
Yep.
Scott and his group have recently took under contract the vacant space here where the 32 units, housing units are scheduled. So
One isn't tied to the other.
correct. Phase 1 is owned by entity X, and then Scott and his group own entity 2, or the site condo section. I just want to make that clarification.
The assisted living was sold years ago. I didn't have any involvement with that.
Well, so the ordinance does not authorize the planning commission to modify that. I would say that they should, for the final plan, they should be able to conclude on what open space exists in Phase 1, and if that does not equate to 10% of the 13 acres, they're able to provide that All it has to be is common elements in the site condo, so that they would have the ability, if they're shy of that a little bit, they would have the ability to meet that standard in the site condo.
So, yeah, as long as you understand what,
Can you do a variance under the PUD for the lot width?
The zoning board of appeals could certainly consider a variance request.
that's not something we can do.
Rebecca, if this was not part of the PUD, would it still be R1 or would it be R2? If they were doing just a site condominium and it wasn't connected to the PUD?
You know, I'm assuming it would go back to what the underlying zoning district was, and I don't know what that was.
I'm just wondering if it is R2, what are the widths and the size of the R2 lots? Do you know that?
Yeah, that's, they designed it to comply with the
Okay.
R2.
Yeah, all right.
The lot, under the R2, a lot is 8,000 square feet and 66 feet wide.
Oh, so I guess some of your lots are shy of that
Yes,
too,
yes.
okay.
The setbacks, however, are compliant with the R2. So if this were to get pulled from the PUD somehow, there would be modifications required for this particular layout, because, so we would lose we'd lose a couple lots here, and probably, another, because we're not quite there on the lot width. We are on the lot size. I don't think that would be the issue, but the lot width. To get all of them to 66 feet would be.
Well, I guess in order, when we can continue on some of the specifics, but is my sense correct that we like the concept and the overall change in design from the larger, big building concept that was in the original PUD and what you're proposing? So that we like, but there are still things that we're going to have to be able to comply with that Rebecca has laid out. So yeah, the reduction in density is certainly a plus. Rebecca, what other things should we be specifically addressing?
Actually, I think you guys have done a really good job of hitting them. You're accepting the general proposal, you're liking the density, you're finding that to be consistent, you're acknowledging that the lot sizes, but understanding that the open space has to be responded to, which would then allow you to conclude on the lot sizes. And then I think the private road was there was discussion that, and all of those things I think are what the applicant needed to hear.
Okay. So, do you have other questions for us at this point?
Yeah, I guess on the private road, because we're proposing all private roads in there, and I think one of the comments was, not a suggestion, but talk about whether it should be public and connecting the neighborhood to the north and south. I don't want to do that, so I want to know if that's going to be a topic that comes up later. I really don't know.
In the original, PUD, that they were not connected, correct?
Correct.
Yes, I knew I saw it someplace.
Yeah, it shows the future Calgary Drive cul-de-sac here. This is phase
Yeah.
4 of Northridge.
Yes.
Not constructed yet, and there was no other connections. There is a utility connection via easement.
Right.
But not.
That's the only thing I would think down the road, maybe the city might want to, I don't know when, if they're ever going to develop that property off Calgary, but the water main comes and stops there, and, a lot of times, water's more efficient when you loop it.
Yeah. If you look at our utility plan that was submitted. Should be that, all right. We are showing sewer and water
So
coming
no.
both ways for future looping. Yeah.
And Rebecca, there's no other compelling reason why we should review the street layout as to whether or not it should connect through? I mean, there's no reason why it is not acceptable the way they've laid it out.
Well, other than it is up to the planning commission as to whether or not they think there is merit in having the street, or at least an easement for a future street, to go to the boundary of the project. So you have the ability to require that. So,
I know we have the ability. I'm looking more for rationale.
ha ha ha.
And I know you can, yeah,
Well-
it's an open-ended argument as to,
Well,
which is
okay, so
better
there's-
for the health of a neighborhood.
Yeah, there's no
Having-
question that connectivity is key, right? I mean, the people living in it like to be isolated from a health safety standpoint, and now we're learning from a community standpoint, connectivity is a far better design. You know, just like the rest of the city has the grid layout, that's what you like to promote. When you're looking at it from a project-by-project basis, really what you're looking at it is there a reason to not extend it to the boundary line? And usually that is answered by what is that other land on the boundary. If it's already developed and closed off and there's no, perspective for that extension to occur, then that helps direct your thoughts on that. If there is a reason that you can see where there is the possibility of a future extension, then that usually weighs in favor of extending it to the line. Like I said, if not under construction, by easement then, so that it doesn't get built on and...
Because I know on the one hand, connectivity is a buzzword today. On the other hand, I also know, based on market, that cul-de-sac lots are very popular.
Well, not to the fire department. Or to the person who needs...
That's a difference, and we've got the fire department yet to weigh in on
Yeah.
this. So.
Or to the person who needs their services when there's a tree across the road, right? But I do know that in our preliminary meeting, Travis was there, and I know that this conversation occurred both as it relates
Okay.
to utilities and the roadway. So his official review, I'm sure, will continue to speak to both of those things.
Okay. So, I think the answer to your question is, it's going to depend largely upon the fire department's analysis and the engineer's analysis of this. I don't know that, I think philosophically, that we necessarily feel strongly about it one way or the other.
I would agree.
Chelsea?
I would agree. I think everything we're doing is in the favor of density.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is in that direction.
Yes.
The way they got this cul-de-sac set up, some place down the road, if somebody decided to, let's say they did extend Calgary, there's no houses being built on either ends of this cul-de-sac, right?
No.
So that's a possibility too. If somewhere down the road they decide, hey, we want the city to take over maintaining these roads, and somebody, developer, comes in and says, hey, I'd like to hook in, I could see that happening. It's not, if you put a house on the end of that cul-de-sac, then you got a problem. And up here off of Sherbrooke Court, they put them right on the end of the cul-de-sac, so. But I like the design, to be honest with you.
Could those undeveloped lots also count towards their green space, the open space coverage? or not, because they're not connected technically to anything.
Oh, which lots?
At the ends of the cul-de-sac, it looks like there's 2 lots that don't have any numbers on them, one at each end.
Maybe because they don't own the property down here and up there.
Okay.
This, are we talking about up here?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's Northridge.
right.
No, I think what Nicole's talking about is actually the space between, right off
14
the
and
end of the
16
cul-de-sac
and 27
where you
and
don't have
26.
any.
This
Uh-huh.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that, I mean, it could be green space, it doesn't have to be part of
Looks
the
green,
lot.
looks green to me.
Doesn't,
They're showing them as part of those lots.
Okay.
But I think the applicant is indicating they can be something else.
But then the other green space could be what's already around the assisted living center that was built.
Yes, that definitely counts, whatever that amount is.
Okay, other questions, gentlemen? If not, thank you very much. Yeah, nice plan. Dan, you have,
No, I was just going to question that we'll have for the applicant. The next step in the process of the planning commission, as Rebecca stated earlier, would be to conduct a public hearing for final site plan and PUD amendment approval. I guess, Scott, in your group, would you be ready to have a public hearing for the November 4th meeting? Okay. So the applicant stated they would have their information available for the public hearing at the November 4th meeting, so that would help you address the next agenda item.
yep. So,
when would you need that,
Generally 3 weeks before the meeting. We can,
What's that, tomorrow?
we can talk offline about that.
and as always, the owner says, sure, and
Yeah, let's talk offline.
I mean, if we were gonna set a public hearing, do we need to make a motion for that?
that's item C on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to get
I'm
to
getting
that
ahead of
moment.
myself. Okay, sorry.
That's quite all right, yeah. So you're okay if we do that?
Yeah. Is the, I guess the question is the public hearing based on the preliminary submittal, or is it based on the final submittal?
Should be based on the final submittal.
Lots of good
That's
discussion.
where, what other information is required? That's
Yes.
my concern. Yeah. So we can talk about that. Yes, but,
Well, Dan, there's really no reason why we can't go ahead and set it.
Correct.
And if they can't make it, then we'll defer it to
Yes, and
December.
you could table it till the December
Right.
meeting.
So consider yourself challenged, but also we recognize that it may not happen. Acceptable?
yeah.
Okay.
And if we get to the 10, we determine that 10% open space, then stick with that plan.
Yes. So at that point, you're primarily your primary issues are with, fire and, yeah, roads.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks.
Thank you very much. We wish you luck. Which will move us on to item C, consider scheduling a public hearing for November 4th to review and consider the final site plan approval.
Make a motion, we set the public hearing for the next meeting.
Support?
We have a motion and support. Discussion?
Oh, you got it.
I got
Okay,
it,
sorry.
but yes. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. All right, items D, E, and F are all just informative. Those 3 items have all been approved administratively, and I think Dan used.
Yeah, per our planning commission ordinance, any administrative site plan approvals have to be presented to the planning commission for informational purposes.
Okay, so you have that for, any questions for Dan on any of those? All very straightforward, seemingly.
So where's the building at that Park T Ventures hooking onto? Is that the golf course?
Yeah, it's the existing maintenance building.
The one they never did anything with the driveway on, or put any
You know,
drainage
this is the
in?
one closer to.
Up by the
what hole
clubhouse?
is that? Hole 3, up by the
Yeah.
clubhouse.
Right. I don't have a problem with that one. Did have a problem with the one they built.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number G, since it is election season.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Nicole Lake for vice chair.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Self-nominations are accepted. Oh,
Do we need a support?
It would be nice, it would be nice,
Offer
yes,
mine.
yeah. I mean, as elections with this group normally go, the train is already on its way out of the
Very late
station.
station.
But we have a motion and support to elect Nicole as our vice chair. Discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, congratulations,
Yes,
Nicole.
congratulations, Cole. I'm super excited for that.
I'm resigning next month.
Oh.
All right, old business, JPA, JPC update. We, neither of those have met, so I don't know that there's anything to report at this point. We have meetings scheduled over the course of the next 3-4 weeks for both of those groups. Work task list, Dan?
Work task list, no change. Housing committee still moving along on some of their tasks.
Questions for Dan? Tracking report?
Tracking report, I did eliminate a couple of those that had been on there for a while and looked and addressed them. I don't have the specific ones. What I do want to point out is the one at the top of the list, the Meadowstone Mobile Home Project. All of the certificates of occupancy have now been issued by PCI, so all those conditions have met. So that will drop off prior to next month's meeting.
Good. Questions?
What about Serenity Village, Dan? They don't, they're not building there now, are they?
No, did I drop them off?
Not on my list.
Yes, that was another one I was gonna drop off because they will not be building on that site.
What about the central dispatch? That's a tower, isn't it?
Yeah, just waiting on final approval from PCI.
What did you say was dropping off, Meadowstone?
That's the top one on the list, the mobile home park.
Oh, no, what Dave just asked.
Oh, that was the 911 tower for central dispatch. Is that all complete and operational now?
What, didn't you ask
It's
something
not
right before that?
operational.
Serenity Village.
Serenity
Oh.
Village.
Okay,
They bought other property.
okay, so that's a no-go,
Yeah.
thank you.
I had the same question
Okay.
as Dave.
Anything else? All right, then we'll move on to open public comment. Any public comment?
No, we just came to find out how the city planning commission
Excellent.
runs.
We're always happy to have visitors.
So you guys are the council, you're not the planning commission.
No, we're
No,
the
we're
planning
the
commission.
planning commission.
You're a planning commission?
Yes.
next Monday. That's next Monday,
We are on the first Monday of the month. Council is on the second and fourth Mondays of the month.
We'll see you next week.
Okay. Commission comments.
I would just say, the Barry Roubaix held their fall Fondo ride, started and ended at Fish Hatchery Park. They had about 300 bicyclists from all over, Canada. Arkansas was, I think, the furthest I heard. But it was just a great day, and, they donated all their proceeds to a couple of local charities, so.
Nice.
Just a great group that
Is that a
continues to
pretty
give back.
typical turnout for the Honda?
Yeah, it's about on par with last year. Yep.
So you ride in it?
I did.
Did you?
Yep, I was about the last one.
Did you have your uniform on?
No. Any other comments? If not, we have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Support.
Moved and supported. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
I totally was in left field of this meeting.
You
I
saw all
was
those
totally,
agenda items in there.
yeah, I was totally in left field, like, thinking, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a long meeting, we got a lot to discuss, and then it was over.
What you got?